Welcome back to Historic Tahlequah. We're here at Antioch Baptist Church with two of my guests, Mrs. Evelyn Ross and Mrs. Betty Brown. And ladies, I want us to talk about the history of this church. And I think our viewers will want to know that this church was organized in 1877 at the same time that First Baptist Church out on the bypass was organized in 1877 by the same minister, Reverend Daniel Rogers. And you all have been members of this church a very, very long time. And Betty, you were telling me that when you were working on the history, that first church was a frame church.
Yes.
And then when was it redone?
It was redone in 1906 by Reverend Teamer. And then this building was redone in 1962 by Reverend P.D. Davis.
All right. And so you've had three buildings in this in the history of the church.
Yes.
And it's always been on this site.
Yes.
And I know that these two ladies and some of the other ladies, and some of the men too, but ladies are always the backbone of an organization, have been active in this church for a long time. And Evelyn, Mrs. Ross, you were telling me when we were speaking earlier about your baptism, first in the little Methodist church when you were just a child.
Right.
And where were you baptized, Evelyn?
I was baptized down on Water Street behind the Cotton Gin.
And that was along about somewhere in the area of where Norris Park is now.
Right.
And that was a Methodist a minister who baptized you there.
Yes, but the church then was on Fox and Lee.
The
Methodist church.
The Methodist church was on Fox and Lee, but you were baptized down in Town Branch.
Right.
Off of Water Street. And then later you became a Baptist and you were rebaptized. And where was that then?
It was in Sequoia Park.
Which is our city park just there behind the Armory.
Yes.
And it's hard for people to believe that the water would be deep enough for baptism in that little creek that runs through our town now.
Right.
And I hope I'm not insulting you, but that was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yes, I was about 12 years old. So I wasn't really very tall, so I guess it was enough water to baptize me.
Put you under.
Yes.
To put you under. Well, as we're talking here, in about 1962, talk a little bit about the size of the congregation. There have always been a pretty good size.
It was a large congregation.
It was
then.
a large congregation
Yes.
then. And you were telling me something else that was interesting. You were telling about some of the ladies who are now gone who did quilting to help support the church. Would you tell that again?
Yes, my mother, Louisa Sanders, and Amanda Ross, they did quilts and aprons and potholders, and they would sell them to raise money for the church.
For the church.
Yes.
So, and
They were mission.
they were mission efforts.
Yeah.
Well, the women in those days did lots of mission efforts of that kind. And Betty, now did you go to this church as a little girl, or was it later when you came?
I came to Antioch in 1996, and I joined in 97.
In 97. And you've been very active here since then.
Yes.
And we're going to look at some of the furniture. You were telling me last night that you were impressed with some of the early furniture
Yes.
that was in the original church.
Yes.
And as a young person, you valued that.
Oh, yes. Beautiful wood details on a lot of the furniture. And it was really exciting to see the old appliances and things in the kitchen, and they're still functioning. And of course, I always had to get help to get them lit and get them going whenever we were having dinner.
Right, because they're not modern like we have.
No, they're not modern.
But that's wonderful that, and I can remember you all did church dinners that, I've been here for some of your church dinners that were, and it's such a historic site, even though this building, built in 1962, that's an old building. But then going back to 1906 and then to 1877.
Yes.
And you were telling me that through the years there would be other historic congregations that would come sometimes and join you in meetings like 14 Mile Creek over in
4 Mile Creek.
over in
4 Mile
Muskogee
Baptist
County,
Church.
which is a very old church too. Now
Yes.
that's Muskogee County, but then still the mission work and the church work is a very old work in this section of the country, and of course it was Cherokee Nation then.
Right.
Speak just a little bit, if you will, about when the church was firebombed, because I know the community was so incensed by that firebombing.
Oh, yeah.
And the community rallied around to come in and clean up and help you get back on your feet.
Right.
When was that?
Okay, that was January the 19th of 1997. It was the eve of Martin Luther King's birthday. And the police were involved, I know, and I think didn't they finally find somebody that they thought had done it? Now that part I'm not sure.
I don't know whether anybody was ever arrested, but I know the police became involved and thought they had, vandals who get around. You know, we've had a recent, last year, had
yes.
several of the churches in town vandals.
Right.
There are always people who want to tear something down. But as I recall, I was here, but you might be able to tell it better. People came in and mopped and fixed
Oh,
food
yeah.
and cleaned the... Is there anything you want to say about that? We're going to have to take a station break here in a minute. But
Okay. I do know that there was a lot of people from NSU and the community that came out and helped clean up. And I know I was out of town when it happened, but I came back like the next day when I got the call about what happened. And you know, the television crews was here and taking pictures, and they got everything cleaned up. And that Sunday we had church with the ball ceiling.
Well, you know, that doesn't keep you from having church. Well, we're going to have to take a break. Now, don't go away. We'll be right back to Historic Telephone.